Is lactose intolerance the default human condition? So, last night I was lying in bed, couldn't fall asleep, and I was thinking about what I would make for breakfast the next day. Toast, eggs, maybe some cereal, and then suddenly my brain went off in a completely different direction. Milk, specifically lactose intolerance. How some people can drink milk just fine, while others feel like their stomach is staging a rebellion. It got me wondering, why is that? After I did some research, it turns out that lactose intolerance is far more interesting than I ever imagined. Here's something surprising. Most adults on Earth are actually lactose intolerant. About 65% of the global population loses the ability to properly digest lactose after childhood. That means the real oddity isn't being lactose intolerant, it's actually being able to drink milk as an adult. The ability to keep digesting lactose, known as lactase persistence, is actually a genetic mutation. The default setting for all mammals, including humans, is to stop producing lactase, the enzyme that breaks down lactose, once we stop breastfeeding. But in certain human populations, a mutation allowed lactase production to continue into adulthood. This is why lactase persistence is most common in places like Northern Europe, where dairy farming has been around for thousands of years. In countries like Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands, nearly 90% of the population can drink milk without any problems. But if you head south into Mediterranean regions like Italy and Spain, the rates of lactose intolerance rise dramatically. In many East Asian countries, lactose intolerance is the norm, with up to 100% of the populations affected in some areas. Many African, Indigenous American, and Hispanic populations also have high lactose intolerance rates. But there are exceptions, like the Maasai in East Africa, who have a long history of dairy consumption and a high prevalence of lactase persistence. Milk tolerance didn't just appear overnight. Early dairy farmers in Europe were consuming milk before their bodies had fully adapted to it. They found ways to work around their lactose intolerance, fermenting milk into cheese and yogurt, which naturally break down most of the lactose. Over time, the genetic mutation for lactase persistence spread rapidly in dairy-dependent societies, becoming one of the fastest examples of natural selection in human history. A common misconception is that lactose intolerance is the same as milk allergy, but they are completely different. A milk allergy is an immune response to the proteins in milk, which can be dangerous and even life-threatening. Lactose intolerance, on the other hand, is just a digestive system struggling to break down lactose, leading to bloating, gas, and other unpleasant symptoms. Annoying? Yes. Deadly? Certainly not. Lactose intolerance isn't always permanent. Some people can actually rebuild their tolerance over time by gradually introducing small amounts of dairy into their diet. This works because gut bacteria can help digest lactose, and regular exposure can encourage the right bacteria to grow. That is why some lactose intolerant people can eventually handle small servings of dairy without major discomfort. Even if you are lactose intolerant, you don't necessarily have to give up all dairy. Hard cheeses like cheddar and parmesan contain very little lactose because most of it gets removed during the cheese making process. Yogurt is also easier to digest since fermentation breaks down a lot of the lactose before you eat it. On the other hand, ice cream is one of the worst offenders. It's packed with lactose and isn't fermented at all, making it especially hard to digest for those with intolerance. But if you're really determined to drink milk, modern science has you covered. Lactose-free milk isn't some artificial plant-based alternative. It's real dairy milk that had the lactose broken down by adding lactase enzymes. That's why lactose-free milk tastes slightly sweeter than regular milk. The lactose is already broken into simpler sugar components, glucose and galactose, which taste sweeter to our tongues. And if all else fails, there are lactase enzyme pills. These tiny tablets work like magic, supplying the missing enzyme so you can drink a glass of milk or eat a bowl of ice cream without regretting it later. Lactose intolerance can also develop over time. Even if you grew up drinking milk just fine, your body might gradually stop producing enough lactase as you age. Some people don't notice a difference until their 30s or 40s when suddenly dairy starts causing digestive discomfort. That is because, for most people, lactase production naturally declines with age, unless you inherited the mutation for lactase persistence. The weird thing is that milk wasn't always as essential to human diets as we think today. Many cultures developed without a reliance on dairy at all, instead, getting their calcium and nutrients from plant sources like leafy greens, nuts, and fish. In fact, for most of human history, drinking milk as an adult would have been a terrible idea for most people. It wasn't until dairy farming became widespread that lactase persistence became an evolutionary advantage. So, the next time you drink a glass of milk, just remember you are either following an ancient evolutionary adaptation. If you are lactose intolerant, you're actually the one following the default biological settings for humans. Either way, whether you're enjoying dairy or avoiding it like the plague, your body is just doing what it was designed to do. Got a weird midnight question keeping you up? Drop it in the comments and maybe it'll be featured in a future episode. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep wondering. I'm Mari and this is Midnight Question.